I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Monday and welcome back to Norse Studies. Today we're looking at Chapter 11 of Germanic Heathenry, A Practical Guide by James Coulter. The author begins by bemoaning the calendar we use in the modern day and finds it all too mathematical and precise. He then delves into the origins of the current calendar and has no connection or spiritual significance to Germanic pagan people. This is an issue that seems to really get under the author's skin, and personally, it is not the sort of thing that gets me on my soapbox, but Coulter devoted 4 pages to his gripes alone. I'm not spending time on that. He does offer a suggestion of an alternative heathen-oriented calendar that I do think is worth a mention. Obviously, it's things that have been reconstructed from available information and various scraps that are gathered from this manuscript or that, and fragment stuff and all that's this and that. Coulter maintains his version of the calendar with Germanic names possess and a holiness and a wholeness that isn't to be found in the common calendar, and he considers it to be a step towards reclaiming heathen heritage. To start with, months are considered to run from new moon to new moon, and he provides the names for the months in both German and translated into English. Now, as entertaining as it would be for you to listen to me stumble through pathetic attempts at pronouncing German, I think we will, for the most part, stick with English terminology. The calendar begins with Harsh month, running from January into February, and it reflects the general weather conditions for this time of year. The second month is Hor month, that is H-O-A-R, not, the naughtiness. This month runs from February into March, and the German root word of this refers to snow, hail, and ice. You might as well just call it Ice Month. What? Why does it have to be complicated? If we're doing this, let's make it simple. Then the third month is Lent month, running from March into April. The German translation of this means spring month. Now, why the author went with Lent month, which is impossible to separate in your mind between the Catholic notion of Lent, despite any other linguistic notions, why he couldn't just say spring month. That's not something I pretend to understand. Fourth month is Ostara month, which runs from April into May, and obviously refers to the goddess Ostara. The author will elaborate later on about why he will place this month into the realm of Ostara and why he sees fit for Ostara to be celebrated at this point rather than at the spring equinox. It's just he really did start treading on my nerves at this juncture. Fifth month is Blissful month, running from May into June. It's called blissful because the weather is generally mild and pleasant. Sixth month is Follow month, which runs from June into July. Follow refers to a period of time in which farmers will be resting from plowing the fields because the fields are plowed, they are planted, everything's growing. The summer solstice would occur during the first part of Fallow month. The seventh month is Hay month, running from July into August. August. Ugh, help. You see what happens when I get flustered. Suddenly all my words get jumbled. But this month marks the beginning of the gathering in of the grains in some parts of the world. I would say this is more likely to be in climes a bit north of where I live. Eighth month is Harvest month, running from August into September, coinciding with the harvest season. The author puts the celebration of Lammas into this month, which is later than what is customary for most pagan celebrations of this time. Lammas is, by the way, a Christianization of the celebrations of Lunasa and Freyasson, so I find it very odd that the author is using the Christianized terms, but, I digress. Let's move on. Ninth month is Summer's End month, running from September into October, marking the end of the warm part of the year. 10th month is Yellow month, which runs from October into November and is an obvious reference to the changing of the leaves. 11th month is Mist month, which runs from November into December, and it's named for kind of the dreary, misty, overcast weather of this time of year. 12th month is Yule month, which runs from December into January, and of course the winter solstice takes place during this time. So here's the thing. While I do have some sympathy, some days even a great sympathy for the idea of having a pagan-centric calendar. The names of our days of the week are already there. Why not just follow through with the rest of the months? But I also see the practicality of people, in general, having a common calendar that they can refer to. It eases the way of communication, regardless of what your ethnicity or religion is. I really question whether or not it's worth it for, all the peoples in every language group and religion and region of the world to all construct their own calendars according to their own ideas, and the amount of work that would be involved in translating dates when people needed to sync up their schedules. I just don't think that it would be worth it. I really don't. And also regarding the author's complaint that the common calendar is lacking in spiritual meaning. Okay, fair enough. It doesn't have a spiritual meaning for us. But should we be looking to the calendar for spiritual meaning to begin with? I am all for integrating pagan spirituality into all aspects of life. That's primarily what my videos focus on. But to be so concerned over the names of the calendar months and when they begin and when they end and on what terms, that just seems like a concern that is better suited for later on down the road if we did have a more pagan-centric society in general. And the calendar that the author proposes, it does have a few odd placements, and obviously it doesn't reflect the climate where everyone lives. And as someone who does live in a state where the weather is quite temperamental, this heathen calendar doesn't really reflect the ebb and flow of the year for me. Now, if we did want a pagan calendar, there's lots of methods to create one. We could simply align the calendar astrologically, name the months after the zodiac signs, perhaps, or another method could be used. But I keep coming back to the idea that juggling a myriad of calendars is going to be way more trouble than what it's worth. It creates confusion rather than spiritual nourishment, and I don't think this is the issue where we could best concentrate our energies. I just don't. The next part of the chapter deals with the moon. In the myth, Odin and his brothers created the star, sun, and moon from embers that originated in Muspelheim, and then placed these heavenly bodies into their positions and set the patterns for their movements. The sun is pulled by Suna, and the moon is pulled by her brother Mani. And in the Germanic reckoning of time, it is the moon that precedes the sun, day following the night. The different points of the lunar cycle held different significance. The author quotes Tacitus, who observed that assemblies took place either just after the full new moon or just before the full moon, and these were considered to be the best times to begin new projects. Exceptions to this rule were made only due to accidents or emergencies. The waxing moon was considered to be the best time of all enterprises that are meant to grow, and the waning moon was the most suitable time to bring matters to a conclusion. Today, witches maintain this tradition in timing our magical workings. In folklore, the luckiest time to move into and to bless a new home was during the waxing moon or the full moon. These times were also considered to be the right times to count money, to gather healing herbs, and so on and so forth. The author goes on to make his case for the celebration of holy days on the full moons, which ultimately serves as his justification for his placement of a star on the calendar where he did, and claims that this is consistent with all a Germanic understanding of time. I don't know about all that. I think this text is peppered more with his opinions and his preferences based on what is admittedly imperfect information, and he's not making much reference to the practicalities of modern life. I think this really is his own personal tick. Now, the third and final section of the chapter explains the order in which Germanic holidays take place, and the author repeats his admonition that it's absolutely necessary to celebrate these times on the full moon or as near to it before the full moon. Not after the full moon, mind you, but before. So, okay, we have Langsingen, or land blessing. The author also lists names for this as it's a really weird spelling of what is essentially a mulk. And instead of a mulk like we would be accustomed to saying it, he spells it Ewemeoluc. So, okay. He also listed Charming of the Plow, Candlemas. Candlemas is a Christian name. It's what they used to call this time of year when they were repurposing the celebration. Now, the purpose of Langsingen is to bless the farming tools, the land, and refresh the luck for the year to come. I think I'll stick with Charming of the Plow. I think that would be a far less clumsy way to refer to it. Never use a foreign word when a word in your native tongue will express the idea. That's the rule of thumb. Next, we have Osteren, which the author also called Easter, and Ostara in that order. For all the disdain that the author has for the common calendar and for any kind of reckoning outside of heathenry, he certainly has been using the Christian terms quite freely in this chapter. But of course, Ostara celebrates the beginning of the growing season. Then we have Walpurgisnacht, also called Walburga Fraua's night, Woolburg is May Eve, May Day, that sort of thing. If you're familiar with Beltane, the themes for Walburga's Nacht are vertically identical, and it's considered to be a particularly good time for magic, and it's a special time for witches. Which, that's nothing new for those of us who are familiar with Wicca or just pagan spirituality generally. Then we have Suna Wendi, the sun's wending, aka midsummer or the summer solstice, which celebrates the height of the sun's power, acknowledging it to begin its journey from this point of strength down to its weakest point, where it will then be renewed. Then we have, and this is a mess of a word, it's spelled Hleibmessa. So here we go, gang. Hilbmessov. Okay, Blofmas or Lammas. This marks the time of the first reaping of the harvest. In Norse circles, this is referred to as Freyfaxi, and again, I don't know why the author refers to Christianized names. Then we have Wintersnacht, winter nights, Hilgad Nacht, hollows, end of summer, end of the harvest, slaughtering of the livestock, and time to honor the dead. Then, of course, we have Yuletide, the winter solstice, rebirth of the sun. All very straightforward there. And that does it for Chapter 11. Next week, we'll look at Chapter 12, titled Samal. I will give this author credit insofar as that he wasn't nearly as obnoxious as what he could have been given the subject matter, and that this is definitely one of his little pet peeves. From time to time, he did get very lost in the text, going into linguistics far deeper than what was necessary or actually beneficial. But he didn't do this as badly as he did earlier in the book, so, credit for that. He did rein it in somewhat. I think his approach to calendars and when to celebrate what, I think his view of things, I think it tends to muddy the waters rather than clarify them. I've come away feeling like I know a lot more about the author's personal preferences than anything spiritually meaningful. So this chapter was all in all a missed opportunity. It just wasn't as badly mangled as the previous passages in this book. But his writing is yet another example of someone who does so much research, and they are so eager to share you the fruits of that research that they lost track of the actual spiritual point. Knowledge without wisdom is only half a virtue, and this author is giving us a very vivid demonstration about why that is so. But that does it. See you here again next week for Samal. Leave any of your own thoughts in the comment section below. I'm very curious about what other pagans think about going to the effort of essentially creating our own separate calendar. Is that something you would be interested in doing? Would you do it along similar lines to the author? If you were going to engage in such a project, what would be your take on that? Let me know either in the comment section or come visit me on Gilded and share your ideas with me there. Link in the description box to join the Gilded group. And I think that does it. Hope to see you there soon. And I guess that's all. Bye.